Hey everybody, just getting connected, making sure everything's working. Hi everybody, it's Monica Guzman coming to you live once again. These 2 weeks I am talking about the cultural differences between American baseball and MLB in terms of how each defined greatness within the sport. And to do so, I'm pulling information from the Hall of Fame. The Professional Baseball Hall of Fame first 5 members were extraordinary men, for sure. What they did, time has proven, will never be replicated. Although many have tried, you're not going to engineer Babe Ruth. You've got to find Babe Ruth 2.0. Even your Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Honus Wagner, Cy Young deserves to be included with this group. I understand why he didn't get in on the first ballot Hall of Fame. I feel like it just has to do with the fact that he played for so many teams. Because he didn't develop consistency with one team through no fault of his own, he didn't garner the support he needed to make this the Hall of Fame first 6. But nonetheless, we have a standard that was set with the first class. The baseball writers of that time established it. So it's not like it was some authoritarian dictatorship dictating these are the guys that are going to get in. These men were voted on by the baseball writers of that time. In addition, they almost got Ty Cobb in unanimously, which shows that Ty Cobb is a great American, unlike what the MLB Marxist media would lead you to believe. In 2021, they loved him. They loved him. And they also had love for Babe Ruth. Why some of them voted the way they did, I mean, at the end of the day, Babe Ruth got in rightfully on the first ballot. And look, so did Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Honus Wagner. The greatest ever for their teams. The greatest Pittsburgh Pirate is Honus Wagner. He proved that as a player as well as a coach who helped some of his batters also obtain batting titles, which is extraordinary given the narrative that MLB in 2021 likes to nurture. They will lead you to believe that great baseball players cannot become great coaches. And I kind of understand that in the sense that Christy Mathewson did not garner a winning record as a manager coach. He's a manager, right? And so, but again, Christy Mathewson was also the most intellectual of the bunch. He was a little bit different, and it shows. It shows in his post playing career when he became a manager. That, yeah, in that sense, his intellectualism did not exactly translate to his team. Whereas Ty Cobb managed to keep those guys competitive, and Honus Wagner didn't like being a manager. He went into coaching. And so it is what it is. We will not rewrite history. History is established. And this is the standard set by the first class. Now, if in 2021 MLB Marxists don't like it, that's different. It's a different story. I understand why nerds don't like the push-up guys. I understand why the weakest among us and the sickest among us aren't advocates for the push-up guys. I totally get it. But let's be frank and honest about these things and just admit that for several years, the MLB Marxist media has been voting based on mediocrity and favoritism and, diversity quotas and all that nonsense. Let's not call what they've been voting in lately great, because it's not. It's not even good in some cases. And it's outright criminal in the sense that they voted in outright cheaters. They plan on, I can push back against it. We'll see how much of an effect that has as far as whether or not they vote in more steroid users, especially the known ones. And then you'll have your domestic abusers and then your obvious compilers in like Ichiro and stuff. But then that just shows the direction of MLB, and then we can rightfully say, see ya. And so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how all of it goes. So I wanted to start off with a nice chart before I jump into all of my stuff. I will hopefully keep this under an hour today because I just want to rehash the stuff that I spoke about yesterday in length. So yesterday I talked about the top 20. Sorry. The weather, it's a changing, but it's wonderful. We're walking into sweater weather, which is awesome. I love it because I know my dog is a dog. He's my pet, but I love him. And he looks so cute in his sweaters. And actually, I crocheted his sweater. I crocheted one several years ago and he wore it out. And I crocheted another one. And it's fun to put him in his sweater. And my mom actually is the one that bought him a couple. He looks so cute. So, reminder, what I did was I got all the statistics for the categories that matter. And I outlined for you the guys who garnered the top 20 spots. I believe I was consistent and I actually did honor ties. So in some categories, there's more than 20 simply because of the tie, but I technically should have cut it off at 20 regardless of the tie. I color coded it to make it more easy to see the differences in cultures by color, whereas post-integration I started to give it a blue hue, and then pre-integration I did my best to give it a golden hue. And so in some of these it's very obvious. For example, your strikeout leaders as batters are all post-integration. Apologies for that. All your your high strikeout dudes, post-integration. In addition, there's a lot of diversity. A lot of Africans are in this column. Dominicans, Venezuela, Cuba. And then you've got your Americans and Jim Thome. I'm assuming Adam Dunn's American. Mark Reynolds, Mike Schmidt, Chris Davis, David Kingman. I'm assuming those are all white Americans. So I just left it blank. But you can see that the majority of your strikeout leaders it's diversity. And again, it's no fault of their own. The way you were born is not your fault. And I'm not talking about Lady Gaga is born this way, degenerate nonsense. I'm talking about whether you were born in Africa or America, it's just the way things panned out for you, right? And it often dictates, though, your potential IQ, whereas Africans who still live in huts have a lower IQ than Americans who industrialized their country. It took them 300 years, but they industrialized their country. It's different. That's just different IQ. And then when you try to modernize Africa, what you get is corruption. You get these warlords or whatever they're called in Africa stealing all the aid that comes from whomever, all the NGOs, right, who are still sending aid in that direction. You get corrupt Africans confiscating it, keeping it for themselves, and then giving the rest away as favors. And look, that's stuff that kind of happens. I mean, Mexico doesn't receive that kind of aid, but there is corruption in Mexico, and we'll see if we can help dissipate any of that. I think it's worth trying anyway, right? And so, you know, America is definitely headed in that direction as it becomes more diverse and less white. We all know this. It's becoming more corrupt. So every country has its issues. Every country has its bottom 1%. But the fact remains that American baseball is a high IQ sport. Babe Ruth struck out, I believe, 1,331 times. And at that time, it was amongst the highest. But Babe Ruth also accomplished several feats. So, again, Babe Ruth is just the perfect anomaly, if you want to call him that. I maintain that he was born to play baseball. Science proved it. If you're into science, science didn't engineer Babe Ruth. And so Babe Ruth is just the greatest American athlete, the greatest American baseball player, the greatest baseball player, and just a swell guy by all accounts, by several accounts, by accounts from the 70,000 who paid their respects in 1953 when he passed away. So what riles up, or what gets my panties in a bunch, right? It's this thing about attempting to pass off mediocrity as greatness. It's just, I mean, come on, right? We can all agree that's stupid. I understand holding in high regard Reggie Jackson, but you can't hold him in higher regard than Babe Ruth, especially since they both wore the Yankee uniform. You cannot hold in high regard Curtis Granderson. I mean, the dude, you know, okay, Derek Jeter struck out 1,840 times in 11,195 at-bats. Okay, I still, again, to me, if you're on this chart, you are automatically Hall of Fame disqualified. You spent a lot of time not helping your team. You're making outs. I'm not sure there's a productive fly out. There's a productive ground out. There's a productive, I just don't think there's a productive strikeout. And this nonsense about the base cloggers and well, if he strikes out at this at bat, he's going to hit a home run in the other bat. Yeah, okay, well, that's MLB Jewish Negro League baseball, right? That's not American baseball. That's the difference. So this insistence by MLB Marxists to pass off mediocrity as greatness is one of my issues with what's going on. It's one of the things that I'm pushing back against, and in many accounts, I'm doing a good job of it. Again, the lore of Mike Trout is over. That is so over. It's not me putting a notch on my belt, or as Babe Ruth did, he scratched in a notch for every home run on his bat. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not collecting scalps. I'm just saying that there's nothing great about Mike Trout, and I'm proving it. And he's officially going to be, he turned 30, right? That's like the cliff, according to MLB Marxists and MLB nerds. You made your bed, now you can sleep in it. I hope you enjoy it. Those are the rules, right? So what's the thing? Those are the rules, thems are the rules. So it's the Democrats insisting on the filibuster and the Republicans turning around and using the filibuster. Such is life. But you guys don't learn. So it's 100% your problem. So have you had enough of this chart yet? I think it's one of my favorites. So in my book, you're not a Hall of Famer if you're in this column. You suck. Let's go to at bats, batting average, and hits. Just a quick rehash. I added at bats for context. It helps us dissect stuff. Like, okay, Ty Cobb managed to accumulate 11,434 at bats, but he also finished with a batting average of 366. So was Ty Cobb a compiler? No, he wasn't. Compilers compile home runs, hits, RBIs, and their batting average suffers in the process. And let me get this out of the way now, because we all know that MLB engineers the dudes that they put in their uniforms. Let's go to at least the Stan Kasten era in Atlanta. So the 1990s on, there's been several degrees of engineering the guys that get to wear the MLB uniform. And so, so Ty Cobb against just the perfect example, right? 11,434 at bats, yet he managed to end with a batting average of 366, which no one's going to come close to that. It's quite obvious. I mean, even the great Babe Ruth, 342, and then you've got Ted Williams, who only garnered 344. And I know it's sacrilege to say only 344, but I'm not sure how I feel about Ted Williams. I definitely have opinions on that. So then you've got Ty Cobb, lots of hits, only to be outdone by Pete Rose. And then once again, you've got Honus Wagner. Honus Wagner, I don't remember what batting average he finished with. I'll double check that. Nonetheless, Honus Wagner is the greatest Pirate ever. And he was a coach. And he managed to produce 4 batting titles as a coach. So, the greatest Pittsburgh Pirate is Honus Wagner, period. Let's go over to the most tainted MLB record, the home run column. So tainted. I mean, look at all, it's bleeding, literally bleeding, right? Do you want me to remind you? Barry Bonds steroid process? I will in a minute or two. So the most tainted home run record is, or the most tainted record in MLB is the home run record. Or thanks to MLB, it's the most tainted column. Because the true home run king is Babe Ruth. Ted Williams is in there. But then you've also got the strikeout guys. You know, I'm going to, just to mess around, I'm going to clean this up a little bit and remove. Let's see what it looks like without the steroid guys, the compiler guys, and the strikeout guys. That'll be interesting, just as a fun exercise. And then you've got ribbies. You got Hank Aaron, the compiler, at the top, followed by Babe Ruth, some steroid users, some compilers, Ty Cobb's in there. And then you got strikeout guys, Cap Anson. Again, there's no consensus on Cap Anson's hit total, so I used on here 1,879. But there's no consensus on Cap Anson, so we just kind of have to go with the range, I guess. So I'm going to talk more about steroids today. I still can't find my notes. They're probably in a different stack of paperwork, so if I can find them, I'm going to rework on that. But I'm going to give you guys a taste of it today. Just a reminder, according to ESPN, on November 15, 2007, they have Barry Bonds steroids timeline. And again, this just came up. I was trying to figure out when the steroid era started in MLB. And I think it's just after the strike, right? It's got to be 95, possibly the end of 94. And I'm going to point out here that how we get put into these no-win situations. So there was a big fuss with Tony La Russa coming back to manage, and he seems to be doing just fine. But the way a lot of organizations garner attention in 2021 is by purposely engaging in controversial actions that encourage controversial topics, right? So Tony La Russa is a controversial manager. Because the White Sox are made up of dudes who want to be NBA players. Tim Anderson isn't very tall, but I guess he's affiliated somehow with the NBA. I don't know if it's like, again, when I was watching the Baseball Hating Network, when they're all sitting down, it's like evens them out. And then they stand up and you realize that obviously the non-baseball players are mostly short. And then you've got the former MLB players who are tall. But even then, there are exceptions. Like, you know, the best used car salesman, he's super tall. He's really tall. And then you've got Smoltz, who's really tall. And then, okay, so I'm just going on this tangent because Tim Anderson doesn't look very tall. So I'm kind of surprised he's affiliated with the NBA when you've got huge guys in the NBA, right? So Tony La Russa was controversial because they call him old school. I mean, that's fair in the sense that he managed a long time ago, right? The 80s. I don't know a lot about Tony La Russa's career, and I don't plan to explore it too much because he was the manager of the A's when they had all those steroid users coming through. So can Tony La Russa claim that he didn't know what his players were doing? I don't think so. So Tony La Russa is controversial because you've got the White Sox team who wants to be the NBA in doing all their stuff, right? Their non-American baseball culture stuff. They want to be the NBA or whatever. And again, that's their prerogative, but their viewership shows that in that Field of Dreams game, why did people watch? Obviously, they watched for the novelty, and obviously they watched because the Yankees. If it had been the White Sox versus whatever other team, would it have garnered as much attention? Maybe for the novelty of the game. Sorry, it's the weather's a changing. I thought about putting on long sleeve today, but I did not. I opted for the short sleeve, but that if we continue on sweater weather track, I will be wearing long sleeves going forward. Again, I'm sure people would have watched again for the novelty of it. But we'll see what happens future seasons when it's not the New York Yankees and the novelty begins to wear off. And these are fair. I'm actually giving stuff to MLB for free. So enjoy it. Okay, but so Tony La Russa is controversial because they called him old school. But I'm not going to defend Tony La Russa, even though he's getting attacked by MLB's culture, because Tony La Russa is again, the A's right there. Balco was right there, right? And several steroid users went through the A's organization too. The difference between the A's and the Yankees is the fact that the Yankees acquired steroid users, whereas the A's had players going through the organization. These were their guys, right? Using steroids. And so the Tony La Russa stuff is very common. It's something that happens very commonly in 2021, where an organization that needs attention, sets up a controversial topic or scenario, and then it splits everybody without people saying to themselves, well, I shouldn't even get involved in this dogfight because this situation is degenerate on both ends. And it'll be interesting if people pay more attention to that and just not participate in these kinds of things. And again, professional sports is waning. The pie is getting smaller. Yes, the NFL still rules. I watched Tom Brady's first game. I as an NFL player, as Tom Brady being an NFL player, I respect him. And so I respect him. And I wanted to see him play. And I'm going to watch the Tom Brady game versus New England. I think that's going to be insane. I don't think it's going to be emotional the way like Mad Bum getting his standing Mad Bum getting his standing ovation during his last at bat as a San Francisco Giant. I mean, wow, that was wow. And he deserved it. He earned it. And I don't know. I think Mad Bum is badass. And so he deserved it. So I will be watching the Tom Brady versus New England game. And then I'm not going to say this because I don't think they can get in. It's just, when the Bucs get in, when Tom Brady's team gets into the postseason for this season, I will be watching that too. I will be watching the Tom Brady games. Because again, that's a walking Hall of Famer. That is a Hall of Famer in our time. And Tom Brady's also badass. So Tony La Russa, that's a no-win situation for people, for fair-minded people, for sound-minded people. There's no reason to even jump into that dogfight. It's not for us, whatever. So one of the reasons why I talk about my health is, again, because I'm character ethic as opposed to personality ethic. I want to garner credibility. And then it helps round out the things that I choose to offer as examples. So I need to do more research on steroids anyway, because something that I've noticed is that a lot of prescriptions have steroids in them. So I'm kind of curious to find out when that started. And then I feel like the steroids in MLB wasn't an accident. I think it was on purpose. That doesn't absolve the guys who decided to participate. And then obviously for Dominicans, it's culture. Steroids is normal to them. But Dominican culture is not American culture. The Olympics holds their athletes to high standards. And these are all amateurs, right? You cannot participate in the Olympics, probably except for basketball, if you've already been a professional. The Olympics is for amateurs, right? And so in 1967, the Olympics started their anti-doping stuff. And so why does the Olympics hold amateurs to a higher standard than MLB holds professional so-called players? But nonetheless, I feel like there's an effort to normalize steroids. But I'm going to remind you that steroids is not American culture, neither is drugs. The reason why Americans put together their no drug policies in the early 1900s is because synthesized drugs were coming from other places. And someone made a comment to me about the dentist, and I agree that Novocaine is a wonderful thing. Some of my dental procedures that I've had so far, they've completed them without Novocaine, and I can feel everything. But I'm okay with it because I'm trying to stay tough. I need to toughen up, right? And part of toughening up is feeling physical pain. And but here's the thing. I have to give this an example. So I'm pretty sure by the time we were 8, 10 years old, somewhere around there, our teeth were covered in cavities. And as a mom, I take my kid to the dentist and I talk to them and I tell them, man, when I was my kid's age, covered in cavities, and I don't know why. And I'm pretty sure some of those dentists that I took my kid to beforehand were sketchy. I mean, some of these dentists were like talking about putting spacers in my kid's mouth because he is going to need braces. But like, really? Okay, let me take this a step further. My dog, bad teeth just runs around me. My dog's teeth, my dog is old. He's very, very geriatric, and he started losing his teeth a couple years ago, and he's got one molar that's his meat molar, and that's the molar that he uses for to crunch up his food and stuff. And I buy him the tiny kibble, but you know, can't have him choking on that. And a few years ago, I called his vet, and I was like, my dog's teeth are falling out. Should I just get the rest of them pulled so he won't feel pain? And they pointed out to me, they're like, the dog is geriatric by now. To do that, they would have had to, sorry, I need a cough button. Because I am coughing right into the microphone. Apologies for that. So they told me that if they pulled what was remaining, they would have to put him to sleep. And they warned me, they're like, given his age, he might not wake up. And that freaked me out, because I have heard other people, they take their dog to the groomer or to get their teeth cleaned and all that. They put the dog to sleep, and the dog doesn't wake up. And I was like, man, I hope my dog can tough whatever's coming out. And he did. But in the process of consulting with the vet, I found out that there are crown teeth for dogs now. And I was like, I love my dog. I love my dog so much, but wow. And the vet was like, I know, I understand. But in so many words, what she was saying is that's the culture, right? And that is the culture because people don't have kids, right? So people who don't have kids and are in like their 30s treat their pets as their kids. Thus, the dog market share has increased as the child toy market share has decreased, right? And so, yeah. So let me bring myself back. Yes, all these things that we've got today, such as dentists using Novocaine, are wonderful, but I need that because my teeth at a very young age were in such bad shape. Had I known how to better take care of my teeth, I wouldn't need all the dental work that I have received, and I still have some stuff I have to complete. So I'm not kidding when I tell you, for me, it's been a year of physical pain. My kid, on the other hand, also, I did all the health stuff for myself, and I made sure I did all the health stuff for my kid too, and that included going to the dentist. My kid does not have cavities, and I looked at the dentist and I was like, you're lying. That's impossible, right? And he's like, nah, your kid has no cavities. And it's shocking because, again, by the time I was his age, covered in cavities. And so he's like, oh, but he's going to need braces. And then he's like, that doesn't mean that he won't develop cavities in the future. And I was like, fair. That's totally fair. And so while my kid was getting his teeth cleaned, I realized that the reason why my teeth at a very young age were covered in cavities and his aren't is because he doesn't drink soda. Whereas we grew up drinking soda every single day. And that's nobody's fault. But now that I know, and it's my kid's choice that he didn't grow up drinking soda. It wasn't something that I imposed on him. It's him. And so as my kid gets older, he's going to be around more outside influences. And I tell him, you know what? You don't want to go through what I'm going through with my teeth. Just stay away from the soda. And something that I want to point out while I'm way off on this tangent is that so some people were upset over the Starbucks switching their cold drinks to the sippy cup design. Look, you can still ask for a straw if you're not into the sippy cup thing, even though the hot drinks are sippy cup design. In addition to that, let me point this out to you guys, and you guys run with it if you want. So my dentist, she is awesome. She's very intelligent, has tons of experience. She's outstanding. And I'm very lucky that I found her. And something she said to me was, we bathe our teeth in coffee, soda, sugary drinks. And so I realized that dentists are going to have a lot more patience with the change in Starbucks cup design. So if you're a cold drink drinker and you do the sippy cup design, you're bathing your teeth in sugary drinks, even coffee, right? And so that's cavities waiting to happen. So if you get a wind of this, if other people want to share it, be careful what you bathe your teeth in, especially if you're a Starbucks customer and you do the cold drinks. You want to consider still using the straw so that the sugar makes its way further back into your mouth, as opposed to bathing all your teeth in all that. So don't say I don't care. I do care. I care about people. I'm not Mother Teresa, and my goal is not to be Mother Teresa, and that's not my thing. I'm not Mother Teresa, and it's not my thing. Democrats, the left wing, the shit that they do makes me seem like an advocate for the homeless and an advocate for the low income and an advocate for the low IQ. Like, the shit that they do to people is horrendous. Horrendous. It's like devil incarnate, devil spawn horrible stuff that they do to people. And I'm not Mother Teresa, and I'm not aiming to be Mother Teresa, but I do care. And it makes me seem like I care even more because of the shit that the left does to people. It's awful. You guys are horrible people. So, okay, so now the steroid stuff. And I'm not going to super deep dive into my health. I want to save it a little bit more, and it's more geared toward women anyway. But some of the stuff helps men too, but the bulk of it is more women stuff. So I started my body started experiencing changes a few years ago, but again, they wouldn't have pinpointed it at that point without me developing more symptoms. And I somehow became allergic to my dog a few years ago. And I was talking to someone and they're like, at some point your pH balance must have shifted. And so when I give my dog a bath, if I'm not careful and I'm not wearing sleeves, the fur on my skin reacts to it for some reason. And, but again, all of this stuff, I realized it's taken some time, some trial and error. And, because I went to the doctor and it was a waste of time. It was such a waste. Then they either they knew and they didn't want to tell me, or I don't know what the fuck, but that's one of the reasons why I waited so long to go to the doctor again. And so they prescribed me steroids. They said, I guess steroid has some I don't know. I have to research steroids as a prescription more to really be able to convey my opinion on that. But I know my experience with that stuff, and because I'm knowledgeable in the opioid epidemic, because I'm knowledgeable in drug addiction statistics, when the pharmacist gave me the steroids, the prescription steroids, she warned me. She's like, these things are addictive. You have to be careful. And then obviously as a mom, they were more careful, because we've seen statistics where moms are addicted to medication. I mean, single women, childless single women, older women are addicted to prescription drugs. Moms are at risk of addiction to medication too. And so again, as a mom, the pharmacist she placed more emphasis on the addictive component of the steroids, and I was ready for it. So I took the steroids as prescribed. It did nothing. And on the third day, we had an errand to run, and we walk a lot. We've always lived in places that are walkable. And so I had an errand, and I like to do things first thing in the morning. So that day I did not take the good for nothing steroid prescription. And we walked, and I could feel my heart beating out of my chest. And I assumed that it was the walking. I assumed that it was the walk. We walk briskly. And when we got back, we had breakfast, and I took the medication, and I noticed that it calmed my heart down. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, this stops now. I stopped taking the steroid at that moment. I was like, fuck this shit. It's not even working anyway. And but I experienced withdrawal. It was in the winter. So, okay, so that makes sense, right? In the winter when it's cold, you use more hot water, right? And so I took a shower, and you guys know this. The hot water creates vapor. That's one of the reasons hot yoga is so popular, is because it cleans out the toxins, right? You're in this sauna, and the sauna environment helps all the toxins exit your pores. And so that's what I was feeling. I could feel the toxins from the steroid medication exiting my pores. And I felt like I was drowning. It was something that I had never experienced in my life. It was insane, but I needed to have that experience at the same time. Because now I know. And when I talk about some of these things, I can talk about it from firsthand experience, and I can rebuke stuff, and I could say, man, you guys got to be careful with this shit. So it took a few days because I had only taken the medication for almost 3 days. So the withdrawal symptoms were easy to overcome in my case. Plus, I had a lot of knowledge about addiction and all that stuff, right? And so I said to myself, no matter what I'm feeling, I need to get through this, and I need to get through this, and I'm not going to become a fucking statistic. And so this is a few years ago. With my experience with prescription steroids, that's not even this shit that Ryan Braun and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Andy Pettit and Jason Giambi and Alex Rodriguez and David Ortiz and all you other steroid cheaters, possibly Mike Piazza. I didn't watch the documentary, but I watched that steroid documentary that has been 2 years at this point. They tweeted out the trailer. Cheaters. This thing about when Balco began measuring the nutrient levels in the outfielder's blood, then prescribed specific supplemental regimens to correct imbalances. Bleep, 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 right? Bleep, 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 bleep. Cheaters. Bleepity bleep cheaters. So I had a second experience with steroids. Because my wisdom tooth extraction on this side, it was super impacted. Plus, it's impacted, thus the root had room to growth. It stretched out. It started reaching the jawbone. It curled. They reassured me that it's cool, right? That they could get it done because, again, age. There are certain. If you're old, like, dear God, please watch over Vince Scully, and I ask you to watch over Mad Dog. And I mean, I know that's selfish for me to do that, but if you're old, don't fall. If you're old, be careful. Be careful. You want to avoid surgery at your age. So I was prescribed 4 medications. They told me you've got to take these together, and I was like, man, do I really have to take like the Valium one? And they were like, if you can't sleep, you should. And then I was given a regimen of steroids, prescription steroids, and I was like, man, do I really have to take the steroids? And they're like, yeah, you do. But what I was imagining was, they're like, it's going to swell and the steroids will tone down the swelling. Now, so what I was imagining was my cheek was going to look like this, right? Like, boom. That's not the kind of swelling they were talking about, and I didn't realize it until after the fact. So I've gone against doctor's orders in the past. I have awesome stories. I have I have great stories. I want to share one right now to like help you understand, but I think I should save it. It's really good. I advocate for myself. Maybe that's why I'm getting such outstanding medical care at the moment. I advocate for my kid too. You have to be your own advocate. If you know you're sick, you need to do some of your own due diligence. Obviously, don't freak yourself out with going on WebMD or whatever, or Google your symptoms and freak yourself out. You've got to have a good head on your shoulders. Do your best to outline your symptoms and then go from there. You've got to judge it, and you've got to be honest with yourself. If you're eating junk food 24/7, then you did it to yourself. And I've got a lot of opinions on stuff like that, but I've gone against doctor's orders before, and with the steroid thing, my cheek wasn't like this. I could see something, I could see swelling, but it wasn't like, oh my God, right? So I held off on the steroid, and it was a tray of 6 days of steroids. And I was like, man, I remember what I felt like after on day 3. Man, I just cannot do this again. And so I'm pretty sure my wisdom tooth, on top of being impacted, was rotted. Infected city, like rotted and infected. When I could peek into my mouth that far back, it looked black. I was like, man, that bleepity bleep must be rotted, and it must have been very, very, very infected. And so I called the dentist, and I needed more of the infection medicine, because on top of all that, almost 2 weeks before my dental surgery appointment, something happened. Something fell out of my mouth. It was black. I have no idea what it was. But then the day after, the gum got swollen. It was gross. It was super, super gross. And so I asked them, I was like, can I start taking the infection medicine now? Because my mom's like, if you go in there like that, they might not go through with the surgery. And so they're like, fine, go ahead. And so a week after the surgery, I noticed I had a taste in my mouth, and I called the dentist. I was like, is this normal for what it was? And they're like, did you take the steroid? I was like, no. And they're like, you've got to take the steroid. And but the upside of this steroid is that so it was a tray for 6 days, but it started off, or a tray for 7 days, but the first day was 6 total tablets. And I was like, okay, I can do this, because it starts you off with the bang, and then it dwindles down. And so I was like, I should be able to handle this then, because it reverses it, right? Like it brings you down so that on the last day you're not freaking out, right? And but nonetheless, so it did the job. It did the job. You can see it looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. The taste in my mouth went away, and the pain, a lot of the pain dissipated as well. But so we're in September. It's been a month now. For about 3 weeks after that, my heart, I could feel my heart like not beating out of my mouth this time, but I don't know how you say it in English. Calambres, shocks. And it freaks. I don't want my heart to get damaged, or I don't want to experience negative side effects, right? So I was like, all right, I've got to get through this, be calm, drink plenty of water, I don't know, right? Whatever, flush it all out, right? Flush it all out, flush all the toxins out, and now I feel I'm good. I'm back to myself. But I know firsthand what prescription steroids does to a person. You bleepity bleep 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 cheaters. Bleepity bleep. Bleepity bleep cheaters. Bleepity bleep cheaters. Cheaters. And so that brings to the other side of today's conversation or live stream with me. So we're finding out a lot of stuff. So, I mean, how it's crazy when the dots are connect the way they connect in several cases. So I personally am grateful that Trump was the Band-Aid that we needed. Can you imagine what would the America be like right now under 4 years of Hillary? My gosh, if you think Joe Biden is the devil, what do you call Hillary, right? I mean, would I be here talking to you guys? Like, let's think about that for a minute, right? Let's get some perspective. But so I'm thankful that Trump was the Band-Aid that we needed. I think it's you've got to manage your expectations too, right? Like, you cannot. I don't understand why Americans do this in 2021. The enemy, the founding of this country is based on the fact that the enemy was the government. Your enemy is the government. I guess maybe it doesn't make sense for some Americans because England was the government of the colonists at that time. And so maybe it's hard to put that into perspective. Well, England's right there, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But this country was founded because the government, England, was doing a lot of the stuff that the Biden administration is doing to Americans in 2021. The parallels are insane. So you've got to also manage your expectations when it comes to Trump. That's why some of these criticisms that come from, like, some of the people that I've called out, it's like, yeah, buddy, sure, whatever. So Trump called out a lot of issues during his term. Personally, for me, he did two things that helped me out a lot. That tweet 2018 about Dave Roberts micromanaging versus the Red Sox, that helped my cause a lot because it got more people talking about the stupidity of analytics. Obviously, Trump wasn't. In Trump's case, he was calling out Dave Roberts, but those of us in the know that it was Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi, not Dave Roberts per se, right? And so Trump helped my cause twice. The second time was with the steroid stuff. So this came from Rolling Stone, October 6, 2020. The title, I was prescribed Trump's steroid and made me feel invincible. So when I was doing my steroids research last year, this happened shortly thereafter. And when I'm reading about this professor who doesn't know what steroids do to athletes, professor, right? Marxist professor doesn't know what steroids does to an athlete. Susan Slusser can't bring herself to do the right thing and vote against this stuff. And then the dude that's all in on Rafael Palmeiro looks like he does steroids himself. So, apologies for coughing into the microphone. So, bullshit on your excuses for steroid users. Bullshit. This is prescription steroids. This isn't Barry Bonds. Balco began measuring the nutrient levels in the outfielder's blood, then prescribed specific supplemental regimens to correct imbalances. If prescription steroids made this dude, I don't know who Andrew Leahy is, if prescription steroids made this dude feel invincible, what do you think steroids specifically synthesized for David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, all the guys who did Balco, what do you think the steroids made them feel? I know how prescription steroids made me feel. Fuck you. All right? Bleepity bleep you. Okay? Bleepity bleep you. Okay? So again, that's why, like, we're going to see a lot at the end of this season. MLB's future direction. We're going to see a lot. Zach Greinke, I don't know what's going on over there. I believe in Greinke. I believe in Mad Bum. I believe in LeMahieu. I believe if they were playing against Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Cy Young, they would be doing just fine. Because that baseball wasn't engineered. It was just a game between batters and pitchers and the outfielders, or the defense dudes, right? Like, but mostly the game takes place between the batter and the pitcher, right? Regardless, yes, of everybody else that's involved in every at-bat. The game is between the batter and the pitcher. That's the battle we watch. That's the battle we pay attention to. And then everything else is a consequence of, does the batter outsmart the pitcher? Did the pitcher outsmart the batter? Right? Zach Greinke pitches in a manner so that he can field the ball because of his experience with Arizona. And it is what it is. And so, okay, so let me reel my way back. So, what I was going to say is, whether or not Zach Greinke receives another contract tells us the direction of MLB going forward, because Zach Greinke is a baseball player. Nonetheless, he's American. He's American. And we know that what's coming through the pipeline for MLB isn't American. So, you know, what are you going to do, right? So we'll see. I can wait it out. I think I have some time anyway. Basically, by the end of Mad Bum's contract, I should have stuff figured out. In motion, more like. I I remember I said 5 years. I can work with 5 years. So we'll see how everything pans out. Okay. So if prescription steroids makes this dude feel invisible, and he says, medically speaking, it was a miracle drug. Dexamethasone. Dex restored nearly half of the hearing I'd already lost, but it also made me high as a kite. Prescription steroids made this dude high as a kite. Oh, MLB can't figure out what steroids did to the baseball players or to the MLB players. MLB can't figure it out. Oh my God. Supposedly you guys are smart over there. You can't figure out what steroids did to these guys, especially the ones that were getting it customized. So in the steroids documentary that I believe was on Netflix, the dude, they had, as MLB started testing, the steroid producers had to get sneakier, right? So steroids gives you a jolt. Right? So what I believe what Ryan Braun ended up doing was he was taking steroid gummy bears or something like that, right? So you take it before you're at bat, it gives you a jolt, you hit a home run, but because it was just the gummy bear, you digest it and the bulk of it gets out of your system, right? And so Ryan Braun got caught. So when MLB started testing, the steroid producers had to get smarter, and they ended up with like steroid gummy bears or something like that. So again, we remember, right? We remember when Trump was given the steroid. There were a lot of memes out there about the resurrection. 7 days, something about 7 days and the resurrection, something, right? A lot of memes on that. Or 3 days, something. I'm obviously not a meme producer, so I don't remember. But, so this dude, Andrew Leahy, was given a miracle prescription steroid. It restored nearly half of the hearing he'd already lost, and it also made him high as a kite. Like I just mainline a potent mixture of espresso beans and psychotropics. I could feel my heart beat in my eyeballs, he says. I was euphoric. I made elaborate plans for the months following my surgery, including another tour with my band, Andrew Leahy and the Homestead, despite my doctor's warning that I wouldn't be well enough to hit the road until the following summer. Not even the anxiety of my upcoming operation can dampen my buzz. To borrow a phrase I heard somewhere recently, I felt better than I did 20 years ago. So this Andrew Leahy is obviously some sort of left-winger, not a fan of Trump. Andrew Leahy, however, when he decided to criticize Trump, didn't realize that he would be helping a Trump supporter. Shout out to Andrew Leahy. Who knows if your music's any good? I mean, hopefully you're feeling better, because I believe you were going to have brain surgery, right? So that's the stupidity of a lot of the left, is they don't realize when they attack Trump or they attack his supporters, you're helping us. So shout out Andrew Leahy for confirming what prescription steroids can do, especially in a severe case like this. He was high as a kite. It was a potent mixture of espresso beans and psychotropics. Oh, good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Thank you, left winger. And so that's my thing for today. I had fun. Hope you had fun too. So the most tainted record in MLB is the home run record. The true home run king remains Babe Ruth. Because when Babe Ruth was doing his thing, there was no Hall to speak of. And then all these media voted awards weren't around. I mean, even the All-Star game, right? Like, so these guys were playing to win. And they were playing for bragging rights and glory and to be awesome and to be loved by the fans. Whereas MLB is all about compiling, all about engineering, all about the narrative, all about the personality ethic as opposed to the character ethic. They did it to themselves. I think it started with realizing that the Negro players that came over weren't as good as the American players. And then as it progressed, the African players are also not as good as the American players. Baseball is a high IQ sport. And then Babe Ruth had quick reflexes. Something about his eyes, right? The vibration in his ears. That's why he was able to make contact as much as he did. But even though he was a dude, he was still intelligent. You can't do what Babe Ruth did without something in the noggin, right? Like, he was intelligent too. And he was loved. And he was celebrated. And that's why we continue to talk about Babe Ruth and the Hall of Fame First Five and Cy Young. And I'm sure a couple of others. Obviously, Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra. Randy Johnson, Curt Schilling, Mad Bum, Zach Greinke, David John LeMahieu. And then a couple of others. So tomorrow I'm going to dive into the top 20 for the pitching side. That's going to be a lot of fun. Super, super interesting. Super, super interesting. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. I will be back tomorrow as close to 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as possible. I will be continuing with the theme for these 2 weeks, just talking about the cultural differences between American baseball and MLB, how they define greatness as opposed to the standard that was set a long time ago, which coincides with what's happening in America. Coincides. It's all intertwined with each other. This isn't about celebrating jocks. Honus Wagner, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Cy Young, they weren't jocks. Even Randy Johnson wasn't a jock. Curt Schilling wasn't a jock. They're all men. To me, Mad Bum, Greinke, and David John aren't jocks either. They're men. They're men. They're men. And so tomorrow, talking pitching. Tomorrow and Friday, talking pitching. And then next week, I'll dive into like the salary stuff. I will talk a little bit more steroids. And then I will dive into my so far magnum opus, putting everything together. And then October, again, I don't want to coincide with MLB's postseason simply because I'm just not attending that horse and pony show anymore. And I don't want to be in a position to be expected to respond to anything. Let them roll out their narratives, let them roll out their agenda, and then again, we're going to find out a lot this off season about MLB's future direction. Oh, I said see ya, huh? That's Michael K's thing. I didn't do that on purpose. I just wanted to say, I'll come up with something else. How about that? Sorry about that, Michael K. So, thank you again. I will see you guys tomorrow, close to 8 a.m. as possible. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.